I think we all know that lately, well, when I say lately, in 2025 so far, Clem has been playing an awful lot of Protoss. He's doing it specifically because he believes Protoss is just simply better than Terran, and lately, of course, this is the most recent story in StarCraft 2, Clem has been playing Protoss versus Protoss rather than TVP. This, however, is a best-of-3 series that was played recently during the RSL. Well, first off, in the top left-hand corner, we have the red Zerg player who goes by the name of Shin, and his opponent is the highest-ranked player from South Korea. We're looking inside of the main base of Maru. Now, Maru, of course, an absolute world-class Terran player, but in this particular series, I mean, this is for a real tournament with very serious cash prizes on the line. In this particular series, he's playing Protoss against the Zerg. His Terran versus Zerg is considered to be very, very good. I believe TVZ is actually totally fine as well for Terran. I don't think it's really that bad, especially with all of the Cyclone shenanigans. Terran has a lot of variety right now, but apparently Maru decides to play the one matchup that normally Terran players would never play, right? I mean, in my experience, when you're a Zerg player, for example, and you really hate, say, for example, playing against Protoss, when you start playing Protoss versus Zerg yourself, you'll be good at the matchup because you understand it from the opponent's point of view. This is Maru playing a matchup, like the third matchup, that really shouldn't be too relevant to what he does now. You do have to keep in mind here that Maru is a very accomplished player. Actually, for a while, he was the highest-ranked Protoss player on the South Korean Grandmaster League ladder. So his Protoss has been excellent for years. I've heard stories about it, but usually he doesn't play it in important events. Now, Shin, of course, an absolute beast. We have seen many Shin games over the years, and Shin has just been getting better and better and better. Of course, previously known by the username Ragnarok. In case you're unfamiliar, this is still something that seems to blow people's minds, at least every time that I mention it. Ragnarok changed his username quite a few years ago at this point, and he goes by the name of Shin these days. He's a very good player, and he's been, well, at the very top of the StarCraft 2 rankings for years now. So let's see. It's a best-of-3 from the group stage. So that does mean that if Maru were to hypothetically lose this series, he's not immediately out of the tournament. But as per usual, when you play any competition, it's always better to win, right? Like, if you want to actually succeed, it's probably beneficial for you to win rather than lose. Either way, for now, everything is very normal. We have a triple hatchery opener right here for Shin. And in the meantime, on the other side of the map, Maru has decided to go for the good old Stargate opener. And he'll be chrono boosting out Oracle number 1. Usually we see 2, sometimes 3. Yeah, sometimes we see only 1. Sometimes we see Oracle into Phoenix, or Phoenix into Oracle, or Void Ray into... There's a lot of varieties. I'm gonna make the assumption, though, that this will be the most normal way, like the most average way for Protoss players to open up. So I'm guessing it will be triple Oracle with some Adept harassment. Just to test the waters right here in the first game of the series. Now, I do believe that the RSL will allow him to race switch. So say, for example, that this game, as the Adepts do swoop in. Say this one doesn't go according to plan. He can always switch back to Terran in the next one. Oracle, though, is indeed going to be followed by a second one. First one, though, dives into the base. We do have 2 queens available. Nice little bit of target firing. Ooh, misses the shot on the final one. But 5 workers for 1 Adept is not bad. 350 as well right here on the third Nexus. All of that is very conventional. Oracle is kind of stuck in the top left, but he can recall it when it once more becomes available. For now, it'll of course be on cooldown. Second Oracle at this point available. Are we going to go for a third? Maybe. Maybe when he gets up to the sufficient amount of gas. For now, though, it will be a Twilight Council follow-up. Now, of course, the norm is to go into good old Blink. The problem with going Blink, though, is that it's also really hard. So if you want to go for something a little bit easier, I always think something like Archon Zealot is really quite straightforward to play. I mean, the vast majority of the micro with Archon Zealot is just attack moving in the right position, maybe setting up a surround if you really feel like it, but it's obviously very different when you decide to go for a Stalker build. Either way, Adepts are going to try and follow up the Oracles as well. We have a Forge on the back of this, and I think, yeah, this should just be Blink, so very conventional here from Maru. Really quite a ordinary start to playing with the Protoss pieces. Let's see. Major skill checks, of course, here for Shin. I think he can commit. Yeah, he decides not to. It's a little bit risky. The main problem, of course, is that those oracles couldn't really join in with the spore crawler. Or the queen's rudder in the right position. No spore crawler over at that base. Oracles actually do have to shade away right now to safety. Quite a few Zerglings have died, and so far, well, the losses have been minimized. Zerglings are going to try and catch up here. There is, by the way, no Roach Warren for Shin. So Shin decided to go straight into an Evo chamber instead. Stalkers are getting warped in right now. That will give Shin quite a lot of intel as to what the follow-up is going to be. One of the Stalkers, though, not quite optimally positioned. I think this Adept is going to die as well. Maybe even the next one, too. A nice, successful group of Zerglings. Because on the back of this, it's been mostly droning. Oracles, though, just trying to be an absolute nuisance. We see stasis wards left, right, and center. Little bit of zapping. Nothing all too crazy, though. Okay, Templar Archives as well. It's very curious, right? How, like, the very best Terran players in the world are playing a lot of Protoss now. Now, the vibe I'm getting when Clem does it is that Clem is actually kind of frustrated. And when Maru does it, maybe I'm looking into this too much, but I kind of feel like Maru is a bit of a troll sometimes. He can't possibly be serious about it, right? I think this is probably him seeing that Clem has been playing Protoss recently, so he's like, you know what, I'll go ahead and do it against Zerg as well, just for the memes. Because Terran versus Zerg really isn't in a bad spot for Terran across the board, I don't think. But maybe he's just not really liking the current parts of it. I think it's totally playable for Terran, but maybe he's just not really that big of a fan. A couple of the High Templar, though, mispositioned. And this is going to get quite annoying, right? We don't see critical errors here so much, but this is all extremely painful. Not a critical error in the sense that he's immediately going to lose the game, but these are the types of mistakes that we don't generally see from the top-ranking Protosses. A bit more damage on the Stalkers than is necessary. Those High Templar going down, or the Archon there getting morphed in. All of it is just a bit sloppy. And that is the type of stuff that Zerg players can very quickly abuse, especially when they are cutting corners, like in this particular instance, no Roach Warren and the fast upgrades and all the rest of it. Either way, 3 o'clock base is coming up right now for Shin. He'll be looking at those juicy golden mineral fields in just a moment. Storm is going to finish up, though, for Maru. And that, of course, is that big comfort zone, right? That Protoss players love so very much. But Shin is cruising. He's sitting at 89 workers. Yes, he didn't have the best early game, but I don't think we can really say that he had a poor early game either. And he's going to start doing some mass Overlord drops. How much practice does Maru really have against something like this? Spine Crawlers and Spore Crawlers coming up as well, just to keep the bases around for a little bit longer. I'm assuming we're going to go into a hive as well. No infestation pit yet, though, so we'll have to keep an eye out on this. Overlord speed, Nematized Carapace is now done. Freshly hatched Zerglings decide to jump into the Overlord balloons as well, and they're gonna take an extremely long road to get all the way across the map. There are a few Adepts on the left side. That's not bad. We have a ton of Banelings morphing in too. The Adepts actually do shade forward, and they are going to, well, not see the little surprise that Shin has prepared. Ooh, I was trying to drag around the Overlords. Not drag my mouse right there over the minimap. Either way, it's going to be a pushover at the third base and one inside of the main, all at the same time. Banelings are, of course, very delicate, difficult to deal with. Stargate number 2 together with a fleet beacon as well. Maru wants to go late game, but if it's up to Shin, this game is going to end, well, pretty much right here, right now. Is there enough? Overlord drops. They have arrived inside of the main base. There are photon cannons and some zealots and more units joining in. Here's the Banelings, though, now trying to make their way towards whatever they can really hit. I think he's hunting for the High Templar. Could have killed the probes, decided better of it, because this is a killing blow here from Shin. At least that's what he wants it to be. He's not just hunting the workers. He is hunting the win. Third Nexus over here is going to go down, I think, eventually, if he decides to target it. Actually, this is the fourth base. Honestly, crisis management here from Maru, totally fine. I wonder if Shin is second-guessing himself a little bit, because he could have taken out a lot of workers. He decided to just play this as, well, as dangerous as he possibly could. And Maru actually managed that quite about, yeah, just about perfectly. Not really any issues. And now suddenly a mothership, Tempest production, all the rest of it can come up. Obviously, there's no real rush for Maru. He knows at this point that the Lurker Den and the Hive are going to be delayed at the bare minimum, if they're even coming up at all. So he doesn't really need to be rushing out Tempest, but I quite like going for the mothership. He believes that he's got the money to get away with this right now, and I believe that he is indeed correct. Overlord drop, though, is going to go back in. It's mostly Hydras and a few leftover Zerglings now. Recall towards the main base, just to bring some more units over here. Fair enough. It's only a small chunk, though, but what about the force over here on the right? We do still have a storm available. It can be juicy. It can be juicy. It is juicy. Nicely done right there by Maru once again. This time around, though, the probes will not be able to escape. Not all of them. Archons in the front would be nice to have, but they've already taken a bit of a beating. Still, though, this is only really about maybe 15 probes falling thus far. And soon the mothership will be out. That storm is glorious. Okay. Soon the mothership will be out, and I quite like this. Maru decides to skip the Tempest production, and he decides to go straight carrier. Carriers are not as good against not as good as Tempest would be against Lurkers. Now, Lurkers are coming, but he hasn't seen any Lurker play. He doesn't even know if the opponent is at Hive Tech. He hasn't seen the Lurker Den. He hasn't seen the Infestation Pit. He certainly hasn't seen the Hive. So if you're going up against Hydroling Bane, critical mass of carrier is actually very, very nice. There's the Mama ship. 3 o'clock expansion, though, has been spotted. And even though Shin's attacks haven't been too successful across the board, he still has a killer economy on the back of this. Worker count is a little bit lower than it once was, but I don't mind that at this phase in the game. He can, very soon, if he wants to, whip out a ton of Lurkers as well. They will be upgraded, Seismic Spines being the most important of the two. Looks like the Prism wants to go into the main base, but good deflection there from Shin. Just a mass amount of Banelings. Let's see, do we have enough? Time Warps, Cloaking Fields, all of this could be powerful. The mothership, there we go, can tank and just deal so much damage these days as well. Carriers are a little bit far forward. Hatchery itself no longer within range of the Cloaking, so the Hydras and the Zerglings and the Banelings are starting to break through. Okay, mothership once more, slightly further forward, but it looks like there is just enough detection from the Overseer to actually snipe the Nexus eventually. That was still a very successful attack for Shin. Wow. Such a risk, though, because if that attack also got deflected like the previous ones, I think it's pretty much game over. But Shin decided to put all of his eggs in one basket, and he just barely got the job done, not really knowing how much storm damage there would be. 28 kills, by the way, on the mothership itself. In the most recent balance patch in StarCraft 2, they did up the actual damage of the mothership itself, which is oftentimes forgotten, but she's not messing around anymore, mama. In the meantime, Spire coming up. And I think Maru's previous master plan is going to be difficult to complete. He wanted to max out on a full Skytles army with Psystorm and maybe a mothership too, right, for support. You never really know if the mothership is going to be able to survive for that long. He can still aim for that goal, but considering he just lost one of his bases, it is going to be more difficult. Then again, he did make a base over here on the far left. I don't think Shin has seen that one. He's only seen a pylon. Oh god, Shin's still playing with the Diva announcer. And during all of this, I don't think he killed that many workers. So 31 probes have died throughout the course of this game. While the Nexus fell, the majority of the workers there did stay alive, and it's giving Maru a reasonable enough economy. Still, of course, an advantage here for Shin, but we are now entering late-game territory, and late-game territory is what Zerg players generally dislike. What does Shin need? I think he's going to need Spellcasters. I think he's going to need both Infestors as well as Vipers to be able to confidently deal with the late game of Protoss. And so far, Shin is sort of shying away from it. His playstyle in this game reminds me a lot of Sue's. Sue doesn't really play StarCraft 2 anymore as far as I know, but Sue was always allergic to Spellcasters and just his non-stop aggression, constant tech switching and all the rest of it. I loved watching Sue play. One of my favorite players to copy from, actually. Mostly because I also suck at Spellcaster control. Well, Shin could actually you know, just mix it in here if he wants to. Su also was perfectly capable of doing it, but he just didn't really like the playstyle. I did it because I sucked at it. We're not quite the same. Either way, I think that it's a good idea, though, for Shin, especially when you start heading into Corruptor territory. Soon he will need Corruptors in order to reliably kill all of the flying units. For now, Hydralisks will, probably kill the majority of it, but look, we have the additional upgrades coming. This +2 is quite late, but when the +2 finishes up, in general, those carriers, they just deal so much freaking damage, especially against Zerg units that don't have any carapace upgrades themselves. Maru, though, I don't think you want to move out yet. He's soon gonna have to deal with lurkers, and those lurkers are dangerous. Let's see. Can he actually clean all of this up? Well, the probes slither away. I think the Nexus is certainly dead, but he did rebuild the one that he lost previously. Here's the cloaking field getting activated, though. Cloaking field, of course, coming in from the mothership itself. He's targeting down, actually, the Overseer with at least some of the units, or maybe they just got caught in the battle there. I don't think that was really that bad of a fight for Maru. The main problem, though, for Shin, is exactly, he needs something more reliable. And Corruptors are coming up right now. Ooh, little Hydralisk dash forward to try and snatch the kill on the mothership, who now, by the way, has 33 kills of her own. The days of the -400 meme are pretty much over. The mothership always pays for itself these days, it feels like. Okay, now, Maru does have a new way, again, to continue mining, and I think he's gonna indeed rebuild the base over there on the left. He doesn't yet know, though, of the Corruptor transition, and so far, Shin is playing this out very intelligently. Yep, more and more static defense coming up. My only criticism here is that he doesn't have any Vipers, and I also think you rarely find yourself in a position as a Zerg player where Infestors aren't useful. I understand that they're a difficult unit to control, but I mean, this is the absolute top level in StarCraft 2 we're talking about. APM really shouldn't be a limitation, considering Shin is on average hitting 10 buttons a second. But he wants to try and see if he can win this game without any of the late game spellcasters, and I wish him good luck. Immortal now joining in as well. The storms here are decent enough. There's not that many Archons, only 4 of them in total. But look at the carriers absolutely tearing the lurkers apart. We've come to expect that Tempests are the way to go, but you know what? Those carriers are not bad at all. Interceptors, though, are slowly dying, and this is the problem, right? He doesn't have enough Archons underneath to really reliably kill the Corruptors. Then again, though, the Corruptors are just being targeted by the carriers themselves. The new Nexus is going to finish up in just a moment. Maru did drop very quickly there in supply, but the majority of the flying units are still around. Shin has just completely depleted his bank that he's been building up, and he's at 170 supply. Parasitic bombs, though, would have been so glorious, right? Couple fungal growths as well to make it difficult for the rest of the army. Look at Maru, though, trying his very best to just break through this. Nice target firing by Shin, but he's making both Corruptors. Now the Vipers show up. He's making both Corruptors as well as Hydralisks. Usually when you're making both at the same time, it gets a little bit messy. Although maybe the Hydralisks are really just to be meant to be morphing into lurkers here. Either way, the carriers are starting to break through, and Maru, is he actually pulling this off? There is no way, man. I feel like Maru has been on the brink of defeat for the last 15 minutes. Okay, maybe not 15. There we go. We finally get an abduction. Feedback, though, was decent as well. We have a secondary abduction, but both of the Vipers have died. Maru has been up with his back against the wall for a very long time, but it turns out he's got a very large back. All right, third base, or 3 o'clock base, rather, has now been fully mined out. Shin decides to send those drones to another mineral line instead. Obviously, with the one falling over here, though, yeah, he may still have 81 drones, but he doesn't have enough mineral fields to really add him in. Couple of Blink Stalkers are chasing down whatever Corruptor they can find, and any kill at this point is important. Dude, it's so funny, right? So, in case you're unfamiliar, the reason why Tempests have been taking priority lately is because Tempests are one supply cheaper as of the most recent balance patch. So it used to be like, okay, do I want to go carriers? Do I want to go Tempests? It's always kind of a difficult call to make, but with the Tempest becoming one supply cheaper, your maxed out army just becomes stronger. So you may as well. Maru decides to go into mass carrier here. Now he is adding on a few Tempests at this point, but he has been going mass carrier up until this moment, and it's been working out very, very nicely. With the amount of Corruptors he's seen, he's now a little worried to add on another mothership. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing it. We have another base actually trying to be set up over here in the far bottom right. I don't think the Zealots... No, they don't need to run themselves into the Spinecrawler over here. Okay. Maru's very good at controlling the battlefield, right? This is something he does with Terran as well. He's very good at, like, reading the current state of the game and deciding, okay, you know what? I'm actually better off just sitting back here and coming up with a win condition once more. And honestly, so far, he is playing Protoss. Other than some of the early game mistakes, some of the small little missteps, although, let's not kid ourselves, we see that all the time from the absolute top dogs as well. How many times have I seen Hero or Army Hotkey and Adept out of hold position in a natural expansion, right? I mean... We saw Maru, for example, losing those 2 High Templar when he first warped them in. That was sloppy, but it's not unheard of. Other than that, he's playing this very intelligently. A very mature style. Now, the only person that I consistently see win against Skytals in the late game is Serral, right? And that's why I'm bringing up the Viper situation and the Infestors. Serral would probably be sitting at about this amount of Vipers, and then in addition... maybe say up to like maybe 10 or so Infestors as well. And the Infestors are good for neuroparasites, but they're also good for fungal growths. Honestly, as much of a joke as the ability is, Microbial Shroud, what's it even called? The Infested Terran replacement ability. It's not terrible. God, professional commentator alert. What's the ability called again? Anyways, we see some nice abductions over here. Wait, it is Microbial Shroud, isn't it? Yeah. I think I said Microbial Shroud. Anyways, big fight happening, man. Oh, these storms are so juicy, though. It feels like those Corruptors, they flew in from such a long while away. They already had taken 2 storms to the face before they even arrived close to the carriers. Mothership activates its cloaking ability again. Probes are running away from the mineral line in the far bottom right. Carriers are a little bit far forward, but... right now, I think most of the detection is gone. It's only the one overseer right over here, and that one has now disappeared. That means that the mothership can actually just allow the rest of the army to move forward. Base, though, in the far bottom right is dying. And slowly but surely, as difficult as this game has been, Shin is starting to suffocate the Protoss. Big warping now of Zealots. Far bottom left. Oh my god, this is Maru's final stand. Does he have enough? Mothership 2.0 is gonna go down. I don't think there's really any storms available anymore. Zerglings and Hydralisks are showing up after popping out of the cocoons. And it turns out that the carriers can just barely control this fight. Again, a razor's edge is what Maru has been dancing on for the last 15 minutes. But he's still not dead. And he still has a decent worker count. Despite the fact that he's been losing probes and losing bases, his economy is really not that terrible. Carriers are, of course, very momentum-based, right? If you can push through at the right moment, and these are now at +3 attack, they really hit super hard. Hydra's trying their best to get rid of the Interceptors. The Interceptors are 15 minerals each. But I don't know if the carriers really care about it. Maybe they're... not carriers. Oh no, carrier. Okay, I don't know if we can make those jokes. I'm not a dad yet, okay? That's gonna be another little while. Anyways, I think, yes, Maru just barely gets the job done in one of the most Protoss-esque ways possible. Next up, we find ourselves on ley lines. I can't believe Maru actually won that game. Whilst... not necessarily playing it that cleanly. A lot of it, though, has to do with Shin's refusal to play spellcasters. And I really think that's what's holding Shin back quite a lot. So, there's this weird dynamic, right? Where, like, a lot of Zerg players at the highest level, they don't think they can ever beat Protoss at the highest level in the late game. So what they do is they desperately try to avoid the late game to the absolute best of their abilities. But then they kind of get tunnel visioned a little bit, where at some points the games will simply transition towards the late game, and they're still kind of stuck with like the tunnel visioned mid-game mentality of, I need to kill him before he gets there, I need to kill him before he gets there. And I feel like Cyril always does a good job recognizing, okay, the end of the mid-game is here. We are no longer going to be able to beat them before they got there. So it's time to add on spellcasters. And I feel like Shin maybe gets a little bit too tunnel vision sometimes, where he's still in the mindset to try and beat the opponent before the late game arrives. But at some point, the late game is there. Maru lived for long enough. And it's also, honestly, I can't really blame him too much, right? Because in that previous game, it's also just a difficult one to really read. From Shin's point of view, he killed multiple bases. You can't really pay attention to everything, so it's a safe assumption you've also destroyed at least dozens of workers with each of those attacks. Maru actually mitigating a lot of the worker losses there across the board, so maybe a bit of a misread as well by Shin, who thought that maybe Maru was on his last legs the entire game long, but nope, Maru managed to keep at least enough alive. Okay, this is a bit messy. Over diving with the Oracle and then not killing anything there in the end. Alright, let's see. Third Nexus though on the back of this. We do have, yeah, Oracle number 2 as well. That one is currently at home. Is he gonna see the workers? No, that are gonna be under attack here in just a moment. I love this. I think you target the base straight up. Don't go after the Adept. Yep. So this is, by the way, a sacrifice that Shin makes early on in his own economy. If those Zerglings get cancelled immediately, or if they, like, you know, don't get any damage done, if they don't achieve their task of killing the third, Zerg is in a pretty rough spot. But this was definitely good enough here for Shin. Just delaying the third Nexus is really nice. It just really slows down everything that Protoss can go from here. Everything that can go for, but Roach Warren this time around, I think it makes sense. He skipped it in the last game, but I think in this game it makes a lot of sense. Not only are you, well, 1-0 behind, you're also much more likely to force some sort of all-in right now out of the Protoss player, because you did deny their third. Maru, of course, instantly rebuilding it. Adepts get a bit of work done, but I don't love this. No. It's a good chance that they're gonna get hunted. Oracle is almost out of energy. Did he lose one of the Oracles? He did not. Where's the other Oracle? Oh. What are you doing, buddy? You're just inspecting the lava. Fair enough. Now again, the third Nexus is in some trouble. There is enough energy still on his Oracle though, so yeah, it will be enough. But not as clean an early game as what we saw from Maru in the previous one, and I don't even really think we can call the previous early game from Maru particularly clean. He's not trying to now catch the opponent off guard though. Overlord Scout also reveals that indeed this is a very standard Twilight Council. On the back of this, Twilight Council together with the +1 ground. Once more Blink. I would not have minded seeing a bit of variety there, although I guess he has also seen, yeah, that the opponent has a Roach Warren. And it seems like so far Maru's strategy with Protoss is just to simply survive. Obviously you want to play as good a game as you can, but surviving is the main goal right now, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he will once more attempt to go into a Templar Archives with Storm on the back of this. That is something we've been seeing quite a lot from those Terran players that have been playing Protoss lately. They are quite predictable, let's say. I did recently, by the way, I did cover Maru playing Protoss against Terran as well. And there's no denying that, like, his PvT had a lot of variety. So originally he did the same thing as Clem did quite a few years ago already, where he did decide to start playing Protoss specifically against Terran. Cybercore is getting targeted right now by a group of Zerglings. It's annoying. A few probes are trying to help out as well, but they're just gonna die just like the rest of it. Without a Cybercore, he can't warp in Stalker reinforcements. So, yeah, it's a bit awkward. Maru really wants to be... He needs to make the cyber core again, man. He never rebuilt it. Maru! You can't make stalkers without the cyber core. You have the minerals for it. We really should. I don't think he's recognized it. He probably won't recognize it until he decides to warp in another round of stalkers and find out he can't. Anyways, what I was trying to say is Maru has been playing Protoss versus Terran a lot. And for quite a long time already. Maybe his Protoss versus Zerg is, like, relatively new to him. Where he has, like, one strategy and one that he really likes, and that's about it. Because we don't really see any deviations from the plan compared to the previous game, except that the spot he's currently in is quite a bit worse. Shin once more. I think he's going to try and see if he can drop the hammer on the opponent. Cybercore, by the way, does restart. I think he's once more going to go for a high-rolling Bane Flood. It almost worked in the previous game, right? Like 4 times, back to back to back to back. And in this particular instance, obviously Shin's position is better. So let's see if it's going to be enough this time around. Considering how it went in the previous game and this situation being better for the Zerg, I would imagine this outcome of the attack is going to be better as well. But let's see. This time around, we did not see 2 High Templar dying before the big engagement started. So that means that there's like 3 or 4 additional storms available. And so far, the storms are juicy. What about the rest of the units, though, showing up right now? Maru's defensive capabilities are honestly remarkable. It's a difficult engagement for him to take. He does take, 15 workers worth of damage now, too. I think the Archon is likely going to fall as well. And that means it's really only just a bunch of Stalkers and Oracles without energy left over. Yeah, this is the result of a bad early game for Protoss. And a really strong start for Shin. GG. And that means that this series comes down to the map Tokamak. Now, I was gonna fast forward through the first 2 minutes of the game, but then I noticed a pesky little drone moving out onto the map. And I think this is a very smart idea for Shin. So look, the top level Protoss players, they generally get slightly ahead from proxy hatcheries, because they're very good at managing it. But if you're in Shin's shoes right here, how good is Maru's Zerg versus Protoss really going to be? How frequently has he been in the proxy hatch scenario? Because in the current meta, it's quite uncommon for Zergs to pull this off. And I can imagine this is going to surprise him quite a bit. There it is. 5 workers get pulled. The norm is to go for 4, but I guess he just wants to get rid of this thing ASAP. Usually we see 4 and then a Zealot. Maybe with 5 you can skip the Zealot. No, he's still gonna make one. Cybercore is gonna be added into the mix. Main problem, of course, is that you end up with quite a lot of resources otherwise. So, how much damage did this really deal, right? So the hatchery is gonna get cancelled. Shin is gonna get the majority of his investment back. The main problem here for Maru is that his base is going to be delayed. And obviously every single timing attack is now going to be slightly different. Protoss is very build order dependent, but so is Terran. I would say that Zerg across the board is probably the least build order specific. Zerg tends to be reasonably flexible. At least compared to the other 2 races. I mean, if you compare it to other RTS games, Zerg is still extremely build order dependent. But now suddenly, for example, gas timings can become a little bit funky. How exactly do you decide when to take these additional gases? Do you change the timing of your 3rd base? Obviously, the delay is not really that significant, but any delay here can be really nice. But the reason we don't really see this much at the absolute highest level is because this is technically, if you like, run StarCraft 2 like an Excel spreadsheet, if you want to calculate it, technically that's an inferior start for Zerg. So Shin is going to have to make up for a small deficit in that department. And he's basically banking on the idea that Maru is not going to be able to deal with this sort of start from the Zerg perfectly. Okay, now it's gonna be triple hatch. Triple hatch. Looks like a gas geyser as well before. No, actually, this was a gas geyser probably taken after the hatchery right over here. Either way, he's gonna be able to get the Zergling speed done in just a moment. Third hatchery finishes up as well. Is this, by the way, Shin's portrait in the game? I don't recognize this one immediately. I feel like not a lot of players run it, but it's really cool. It's clearly a Zergy background, right? I mean, that looks like a Brood War hatchery. At least the color scheme of the background. I think so. If I had a portrait of myself like that in the game, I would be running it all the time, Shin. Although the Korean pro gamers are also very well known to just run each other's faces. That's why I'm not entirely convinced. Either way, Oracle has shown up right now, and 2 drones did go down to the Adepts. There is, by the way, a Loco portrait in the game. It's from a tournament that I played in years ago called the Caster Invitational, where I ended up cheesing Maynard twice, and then I got eliminated, I think by... I don't remember. I just remember cheesing Maynard twice and winning the round. And I got a portrait in the game because of that. Still feel a little bit bad. I think my MMR at the time was like quite a bit higher. I don't remember the exact numbers, but quite a bit higher than Maynard's. And I think we played a best of 3 that I won in about 12 minutes. It was a little mean in hindsight. I probably didn't need to cheese, but anyways. Got the Loco portrait in the game. The Loco portrait, by the way, has the biggest forehead that I've ever seen. Like, don't get me wrong, I have a bit of a 5 head as it is. But the Loco in-game portrait has like a 17 head. Look, the artwork is real cool, but man. Either way, Blink is gonna be coming up here again for Maru. And the Forge will be added into the mix as well. I honestly don't mind this spot for Maru. Yeah, 4 drones. I mean, that's not really anything to write home about. But it's not been a terrible start. Shin is not going to skip the Roach Warren this time around, so I'm guessing this will be a +1 missile upgrade once more. Maru indeed, by the way. Bit of a one-trick pony, it looks like, with Protoss. This will 99% of the time now be followed up with a Templar Archives, and then eventually, I'm sure, a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon. Curious to see if he goes carriers, actually, in a default game, but maybe that was a response to what he saw from Shin with, of course, that mid-game, well, effectively an all-in there from the Zerg. If this is going to be a more conventional follow-up from Shin with, well, an Infestation Pit, a Hive, a Lurker Den, will we still be seeing carriers? There's indeed the Templar Archives, as expected. Hydro Den coming up as well for Shin. Is Shin going to go Baneling Nest, by the way, again? You really don't need to go for a Baneling Nest. That's what he's been doing so far in every game, it seems. I don't think he will this time around, though. Usually when you go Banelings, you also want to go melee upgrades rather than missile. Although, again, Zerg is quite flexible. Storm! Bring it on! Yes, there it is. It's a very good research, isn't it? The energy recharge really does make any spellcaster a little bit better. Protoss players have been loving it. Cheeky little stasis ward again. Just to be a bit of a nuisance, but again, also something that is managed very nicely here by Shin. He is going to go Infestation Pit. So this is a shake-up here from Shin. Shin is basically saying, look, I'm not going to go Banelings this time around, but I will have a faster Twilight Council or Twilight Council Infestation Pit against your Twilight Council, and then we'll probably have a Hive here in the natural in just a moment. Good revelation, though, by Maru, who hasn't quite seen the Infestation Pit, but he's going to see it right now. Great scout, he clicks it. Yep, nicely done. So he will see the timing of the Hive, and that will give him all of the intel that he really needs. Zerg can be aggressive from here, but usually it's not going to be as much aggression as what we saw from the previous fights. So no Banelings this time around, and immediately... Ooh. A Void Ray starts up. That's a little bit odd. I was going to say immediately the 4th Nexus begins. I'm not sure why we have a Void Ray coming. He is going for the more conventional Stargate, second Stargate that is, together with the Fleet Beacon, +1 air weapons. I like this a lot. I'm really not sure though about the Void. Maybe it's just to deny an Overlord Scout or two, but I don't really see any of those. We'll have to keep an eye out. Maybe it's also just to confuse the opponent a little bit, because if I was Shin, seeing a Void Ray right now would probably make me quite happy. Because they're expensive and not really particularly useful at this stage in the game. Maybe it's because he's a little bit afraid of this particular attack, but I think Storm and Stalkers will deal with this just fine. Shin is mostly just here to open up the rocks. Any damage done to the rocks right now will maybe allow him some run-bys later on. I mean, Void Ray is going to be quite nice here, I suppose. But Storms, though, should be plenty. Look at the High Templar, man. Look at them bugging to the front. Excited to be raining down the storms on those dirty Zerg units. Yeah. He doesn't want to have any pests in his bases, you know? Like, if you see a cockroach running through your living room and you have Sonic Storm available, you would probably use it too. I think it's a very reasonable response. Either way, the Stargates are not going to go into carriers this time around. So I think it was indeed a response to the Hydraling Bane pushes. This time around, it will be the more conventional Tempests. And this time around, of course, the Lurkers are going to be hitting the battlefield much sooner. And I think it's the right choice. Carriers against Lurkers, not quite as nice as Tempest against Lurkers. And obviously, Tempests also don't need any of the Interceptors. It is good to have. Wouldn't mind a Stasis Ward on the high ground, actually, just to slow down any advancement here. Either way, Lurkers are now, well, already sieging up. These are very fast Lurkers, so an extremely conventional follow-up here from Shin. Is there enough to actually break through? In the meantime, the Stalkers are sort of abandoned right over in this position. Not quite the case, it looks like, though. And I think with this multitasking here from Shin, he is going to be able to get rid of a lot of those units now, and possibly even the fourth. Zerglings in the main base are really going to hurt Maru quite a lot, who doesn't even have charge yet. Still, though, if the first game of this series was anything to go off of, even with all of the bases dying and everything falling apart, Maru will not deviate from plan. And I'm assuming he will just stay in this game now. But this was a very effective trade, of course, for Shin. Not only does he trade out the armies, he gets eco as well to boot, and he's not even done yet. He's going to try and see if he can continue moving up towards the high ground. This is... I don't really think it's necessary. Not a bad idea for the Zerg to just remax out and maybe wait for just a moment. You got what you came for, no reason to get greedy. He's just a little bit concerned again, right? Sometimes the tunnel visioning makes sense. A little bit concerned of the Stargate transition. Okay, Spire in the meantime inside of the main base of Shin. Shin only on 4 base eco. Yeah, 5th base makes a lot of sense. Double Robo, alright. Maru is gonna go and fight fire with fire. He no longer believes in Skytles that much, and I think it makes sense, because the previous games have already shown us that Shin will not really be hesitating to transition towards any sort of Corruptor production. And when your eco is down the gutter here, what are you gonna do as Maru? Maru decides to go into, I think, what will be Mass Immortal. Mass Immortal is pretty darn good against Mass Lurker. Obviously, it's phenomenal against Corruptors. If any Corruptors come out right now, I mean, that will be benefiting Maru tremendously. Nexus is going to be rebuilding, though. And Shin will certainly have his eyes set on this part of the map once again. Usually Tokamak is quite difficult to push into. Shin taking the long way around. 5th hatchery in the meantime all the way up north. We have some spine crawlers already set up right next to it. And it looks like Shin indeed has made his way over here. And Maru is going to be in some trouble. This base is very likely to fall again. Yep. Nicely done here by Shin. Great movement. He now sees the additional Tempest. And he does fire up Corruptors. I don't think you want to go Corruptors here. Hydras will pull it off just fine. Honestly, Microbial Shroud would not be a bad idea here. Again, I would love to see a few Infestors. And if we're going to go Corruptors, a few Vipers as well. Spine Crawlers, though, are going to be making their way over here. You can see that the main focus for this base is really just the Vespian gas. That's Shin's main bottleneck. But some extra minerals, not a bad idea. Maru, what do? After you've been punched in the face 4 times, what do? Do you show your opponent your cheek again? How very biblical here of Maru. Maru literally just doing the same thing. He's like, yeah, but what if I do the exact same thing again? But look, what if look, I know my opponent just countered me, but what if I just do the same thing again? Surely he's not going to expect that after I lose the 3rd base for the... I just do it again. This is very Protoss of him, though. I will say this is very ladder Protoss in particular. Because the strategy is remarkably similar to the first game, right? Yeah, we've taken a lot of damage. But eventually we're going to max out. And Maru is now sitting at 188 supply. And this is an army that needs to be respected. 16 Corruptors, by the way, for 1 Mothership and 3... It's a little much. No Vipers, man. Why are we not going Spellcaster, Shin? Shin, we're making this harder than it needs to be. Imagine if you could abduct those Tempests right now. The Tempest would be dead. And at that point, you can move your Lurkers a little bit closer to the Nexus. At that point, you can practically, well, ensure that the base is going to fall. Well, Shin decides to try and go in deep. I don't really love this here for Shin. I really don't think this is the way to fight it. Still, though, he is going to be able to get the Nexus kill eventually. Refusing to add on Spellcasters yet again. But he's doing so successfully. Still, this is an army right now of Protoss that needs to be respected. Look at this absolute unit over here. It is going to be a scary army for Shin to face off against. He does have a lot of static defense, though, which will make life a little bit easier. Prism microed nicely. Lurkers over here. What about the Corruptor swooping in from the side? You can't really storm your own units, but I think it's okay. A few Vipers now do show up. Tempests are all going to die, and so will the Mothership, but I think it's okay. I don't think that's too bad here for Maru. Yeah, Maru makes a full transition towards ground, and those Corruptors are just paper planes now. I mean, maybe you can go ahead and kill a Prism with them. Sure enough, but what about this fight right now over at the front? This is the first time that Maru strikes back in this entire game. New Mothership does begin. I don't know if there's enough, though, for the Protoss to break through, but you can see how terrifying this can be for the Zerg player. More and more reinforcements are showing up. I would have loved to see a few of those Immortals turn their guns onto the hatchery for just a sec. Maru, though, decides to slowly but surely back up there. And, well, he does maintain the majority of his Immortals and Archons. Those are expensive units. New Lurkers coming up. Speaking of expensive units, 150 minerals and 150 gas each. For Zerg standards, that's pricey, okay? Mothership, though, is going to finish up in a moment again. And now, I mean, the Corruptors have been on the same control group for a bit. This gets really awkward, because now suddenly the Mothership is actually going to be incredibly dangerous. Greater Spire starts up, so he can eventually go into Brute Lords as well. But I don't... I don't think throwing away the Corruptors was really the right call. Because now we don't have an answer against the Mothership. And the Mothership has been incredibly useful already for a while. One little Lurker has made its way around the back. No Nidus play here from Shin. We did have a few Vipers, but they immediately died because of miscontrol. It's so funny. Like, comparing this to what Serral does. Like, basically what Serral does is the same thing, but then better across the board. I feel like we rarely, if ever, see Serral use one spell with a Viper and then, you know, the Viper dying immediately. It's just slightly cleaner across the board, and obviously that makes all the difference. Either way, Shin had a phenomenal I want to say first 15 minutes in this game, maybe 13 minutes or so. But he has not been able to really leverage that into a win just yet. And again, right, just like in the first game, we have now arrived at the proper late game. It's important not to get too tunnel vision on trying to kill the Protoss player right here, right now. Because this is an army that needs to be addressed. Okay, we're going Lurker Brute Lord against it. Huh. I quite like this, though. A little Overlord drop on the left side, or on the right side of the base, rather, and then just try to be annoying. Who needs a Nidus Worm when you have one drop alert and one Lurker? Let me tell you the story of the Lurker and the Overlord drop. Man, that is a children's story I would like to read. The Lurker and the Overlord. They're going back in again. In the meantime, though, the rest of the Protoss army has got their eyes set on this base right over here. Oh, here goes the Lurker drop again. Lurker, no! Larry, move away! Larry, burrow! Well, I guess he's a little preoccupied. Larry is dead. Otto is still hanging out. But in the meantime, 16 drones did die to the base up north. Well, maybe they didn't die to the base. They died next to the base. They died to the Protoss army that was hitting set expansion. And what about this push right now for Maru? Honestly, this army is terrifying. An Infestor is coming now, though, and I do think it's the right call. Look at how immediately it changes the tide of battle. Hydralisk dash forward again, but that's another hatchery biting the dust. Maru slowly backing up again. Desperately trying to find the Stimpack button on those Immortals. My god, are they slow. Revelation, though, has been used very effectively. Hydra's awkwardly derping through some of the mineral fields, but ultimately making their way there. This is Larry's replacement over here, but he is also dead. And while Maru was having a difficult time holding on to 4 bases, he stayed alive, rebuilt everything, and has now got a 6th. I mean, 6-base Protoss can do whatever they like. I would really like to see him focus on additional upgrades, though. Upgrades are lacking here for Maru, and I believe that was one of the reasons why he won the first game. Those +3 carriers absolutely tore apart the unupgraded Corruptors. Obviously, a very different unit composition across the board, though, for both players this time around. Those Storms, again, very nice. Infestor miscontrolled right there from Shin. Maru walks everything forward, an aggressive blink as well. Immortals are still just tearing apart everything on the ground. The Mothership does fall. What about the Brute Lords, right? Are there enough units available to snipe down the Brute Lords? Well, maybe with a big Warpin, but the Warpin does not complete. Shin ends up killing the Prism there. And that means that all those Stalkers are gone. The Mothership is gone. And Maru is going to have to make the walk of shame off of creep once again. Brute Lords, though, too slow to really slow this... Well, to really, like, follow this army up, right? Like, that's the difficult part with Brutes. Yeah, in a straight-up fight, they're really good. But what if the opponent just walks away? And that's exactly what, well, Maru is doing very intelligently here. Even starts up a 7th, all the way in the far bottom right. No static defense on these expansions. Maru, there is no planetary fortress, okay? Maru's like, where's the planetary button? I can't. How do you defend the Nexus? You have to actually build static defense usually. That's what Protoss players... Anyways. I'll explain it some other time. Jokes aside, though, Maru is actually playing this very nicely. Albeit a little bit rough around the edges, but... his unit composition is funky, at least compared to what we normally see. The way he defends his bases is suboptimal compared to what we normally see. But it's still working out just fine. And keep in mind, he is fighting a world-class Zerg. So maybe we shouldn't be too critical. Maybe the established norm is not even the way you should play this. I don't know. Either way, the Brute Lords have now found the kill, though. And that's, of course, where Brute Lords are so nice. Usually, Brute Lord Lurker is the ultimate anti-ground unit composition from the Zerg. There's not really an easy army that you can make, but again, if the army can just run away, Lurkers and Brute Lords really suck at chasing. If the army can just run away, it is a problem. So that's where those Infestors could come in so handy. Nice little Zealot run by, though, in the far top left. The units will arrive eventually, but those Zealots are still going to be responsible for, like, yeah, 16 worker kills. Not bad at all. In the meantime, with that army now making their way all the way towards the top left, it looks like Maru is moving in towards the right side. Usually, Maru is very elegant with the way that he plays Terran, right? Like, his Terran is very sophisticated and very clean. He is playing Protoss like a blunt object. To a man with a hammer, everything is a nil, right? For Maru with Protoss, everything is caveman style. That's what we're going for right now. We are gonna try and smash the opponent in the face. And you know what? It's a big hammer. It's a dangerous, blunt object. Look at this army. It's kind of weird, especially for this phase in the match, but he's up in supply right now. Zealot run by again in the far top left. Maru has actually got his eyes set right now on the opponent's natural expansion, and Shin is not really in a position to try and deal with it. Maru's saying, yo, you're defending your bases? That's cute. I would just go for the throat if that's the case. Keep in mind, though, that a recall is not always available, and it is currently on cooldown. So, not a bad idea to back up for just a moment. New mothership is available. That will have a separate mass recall, but it's going to take several cooldowns here to recall all of this mass. There's a Yo Mama joke somewhere in there. Anyways. He blinks to move after some of those Zerglings, and now finally is when Shin figures out, oh snap, this base has been up for a while. Shin unaware of the entire Protoss situation, and now realizes that he needs to try and do something about it. Storms could be powerful here, though. Yeah, Storms can just keep this army at bay forever. It's weird because the Storms are kind of like forcing the Zerg to back off, where the Zerg really wants to be fighting right now. This is a Protoss army that can, well, it cannot really be chased very nicely, right? Shin can try, but he can't really catch. Tempest production, though, kicks in again. And here's the Mama ship, just about to spawn. Look, and as the dust settles, look at the situation we find ourselves in. Shin is sitting at a pretty atrocious economy. Not really able to effectively mine the meager 46 workers that he's currently got. Maru has got a maxed out army. A very strange one for, well, 26 minutes of game time, but an extremely powerful one. It doesn't have the best upgrades. He only just now realizes that he never fired up the +2 attack. But he's been tearing the opponent apart with all these Zealot run-bys. Lurker then is going to go down. Oh, yep, there it is. Little Zergling run-by over here, though, is going to force a recall. My god, it's one... What? It's one Tempest. Okay. Ooga Booga Protoss style, though, is good. It's so messy. I just see, like, every time I pan the camera anywhere, some Protoss unit seems to be dying. But he's getting cost-effective enough traits. Look at that. Like, what, 13,000 resources more lost by the Zerg? All the while having reasonable mining? Maybe Zerg has had slightly more, but certainly not like the 20% or so that they need. Immortals moving through, though. The Storms are good, but so are the Lurker hits, and so are the Brute Lords. Little squad of Hydras here. That's where the Lurkers and the Brute Lords are so nice, right? You can just use them for zoning. Nothing really you can do here as the Protoss, but, I mean, he's picking off some expensive units from a distance. He does have enough Tempest here to one-shot Brute Lords if they're all fighting at the same time. And he does still have multiple Oracles in the mix to constantly throw Revelations to really allow this Protoss army to shoot at their maximum distance. Sure, the hatchery dies, 17 probes have also gone down, but I think Maru is, again, winning the main engagement. Shin decides to tap out. So wait, let me get this straight. This is an important StarCraft tournament with a serious amount of money on the line. In the group stage of the tournament, Maru decides to play Protoss against Zerg, even though Terran is doing really well against Zerg right now across the board. And Maru's TVZ is excellent. I mean, we saw him play against the absolute top dogs at the EWC. And even though he did end up losing some of those series, right, he also won a whole load of them. So for him to pick Protoss against Zerg and then to actually win with Protoss while playing a relatively sloppy series across the board against one of the world-class Zerg players on the planet, it's it's highly entertaining. But I also did not expect that at all.